Good evening. I am Cynthia Harrison, and this is the Intuitive Energy Medicine Power Readings for Monday evening. Have a breath. Welcome. Let's see who comes to join us tonight. Say hello if you're coming on and let me know there's somebody here. Hey, Murray. Nice to see you. I'm trying from my laptop straight off this time because we've had so much trouble. I'm not even worried about my phone. So I've worked out that there's particular people who come on who are very high energy, and when that interrelationship happens, it can sort of be too much. So, hey Jennifer, let's just get ourselves here and see what's going to come tonight. Oh, I can feel you already. Can you feel it? Close your eyes and just feel into your body. You feel that little yeah, starting to come into the head. Okay. Can you hear me okay? I have it up full ball and I have the microphone right here. No mucking around tonight. Okay. Because I'm still speaking quite softly. So I have a few things I want to go into tonight, but I also want some questions as usual. If I don't get questions, I tend to talk more. So it's just how it goes. I do have a deck that I love that I wanted to share with you, and it is the Sacred Vision Oracle cards. So we might use these to see where we go as well. I do want to talk a little bit about love and not so much about truth, but I suppose that comes into it. So I'm open to any questions though. And maybe we won't speak about that at all. Maybe it won't come up. So maybe we will actually, I'll show you the cards, but then I'm going to start inviting some people as we do. The Sacred Oracle cards. I don't know if any of you have followed me on my second last pilgrimage with my friend Lauren, and we went to Sedona and Mount Shasta and sort of Phoenix and all California, lots of different places. And we were using these cards, and I use tools as not a be all and end all. I get the information myself, and then I'll use the cards to see if there's a correlation or how it overlays the information that I already have. It's really cool. These cards in particular, everything Lauren and I did, so even when we left the house, what we took with us, like everything we asked about, and what we wanted to do and what happened when we asked were often two different things, and it was about learning to trust. Amazing things happened on that trip, and they always do when we work like that. but it was the trip that I was doing readings from these cards, and they're on this Facebook, but they're from quite a way back, so you might have to do some searching for them. And in her deck, because we were using her deck, we were on the coast, and we went up into the hills along the coast, along the beach, and the ravens came and actually stole one of the cards, and I took photographs of it and could tell what card it was, and we read the card that the ravens had taken, and it was really interesting. Anyway, welcome. Still ask your questions. So now I'm just going on my phone and sharing it to my personal page. So if you think this might be helpful to anybody you know, please share. Sometimes magic happens, sometimes you never know. You never know what's going to come up. So I'm just going to share to my group. Where else? We could share to Blue Star group. We could share to Energy Medicine Exchange, maybe. Earth. Okay. Any questions? Who else is on? There's somebody else on that I can't see who it is. Say hello if you would like. And I'm just going to share it to my personal page because there's lots of people on that one. You never know. Somebody might want to talk about what we end up talking about. I fear I want to, when we settle in a bit, hey Fee, knew that was somebody else. When we settle in a little bit and people have started to come on, I'll start talking about some things, and that might bring up some questions if you don't feel like you have questions right now or there's nothing coming up for you right now. Often what I talk about or my stories end up leading to something that you might need anyway, just like the cards. You know, that's how this oracle works. That's how these oracle work. And my new page. So those of you that have got a new invite to the Cynthia Jane Harrison page, it's actually not a new page. What I did is I amalgamated 2 pages. So it means that the old Cynthia J. Harrison and all the information that went with that no longer exists. I deleted it basically because we're starting again. So welcome. Think of some questions, think of some ponderings. What do you want to know? It could be what I call a mystic musing, so a pondering about your spiritual development, things that you've experienced, some bizarre and extraordinary or miracles that you've heard about or seen or experienced yourself. We can talk about that sort of stuff. Or you could ask me about energetics of your own system, what might be going on for you, those sorts of things. We're pretty much open here, yeah? So I'll share one more and then we'll get into it. And see if it comes up on this one. Yep, it does. Okay. So I'm just sharing to my new group. And I won't always do that. My groups will end up eventually being very separate. So that I'm not posting the same thing on every page, because it drives me mad when other people do that. So I don't want to do it. Okay. Turning my phone off now. I am with you. I feel like crossing my legs, so I will. Okay, my power generator. This is a power generator. I'll just hold it to my neck for a moment. I used to make these. It's black at the moment because it's cold, but it changes colour. You see it's gone a little bit green, but anyway, I want it to be green. So welcome. What are we going to talk about? I think we'll do a card first. We'll do a card and then we'll get into I wanted to talk about how we feel. And actually, Murray, this might ring true with you because you've asked me a little bit about this over the past few weeks. And I haven't really gone into it. And, well, I have, but maybe not in very much clarity. So let's do the card in relation to maybe what the overall theme of might be for tonight. What do you think? Give us a thumbs up or a like or something. Communicate with me, people. Okay. If you want your own card in relation to something in particular, I'm happy to do that too, yeah? But I want to talk about living truth, really, but it's in relation to love or what we think love is. Okay. So vision. Okay. We've got vision. All right. So heaven is where you find it. It's exactly what I'm going to talk about tonight. Isn't that bizarre? It's not bizarre, it's beautiful. And okay, so we'll get the gist of what this is about, and then I'll go into what I wanted to have a little rant or mystic musing about, okay? So the question is no longer how did we get here and why? Where do we go and how? Oh my goodness. You'll see how this relates when I start to explain. We are placed on the path of life to experience, interact with, and be challenged by its dangers. Paradise is not a place, but a state of mind. We must heed the advice to stop and smell the roses, for it is possible that in our fervor to search for the elusive, we sacrifice our Garden of Eden for the trees. It is not so much in what you see, but in the way in which you see it. You are flying above your life. And we're talking about flying today. You are flying above your life, unaware of your true reality. The feathers you hold are not your own. They are a gift that must be returned one day. They are a gift that must be returned one day. Like the dream catcher and the medicine wheel, they hold change. New colours become brilliant and luminous as you journey, and you wear the feathers of distinction, the mark of a seasoned, soulful traveller. Your hands reach out. Your hands reach out. Your hands reach out to hold back illusion. Heaven is before you. Your dreams are coming true. Cool, eh? Vision, vision, vision. All right. Any questions? Come on, people. That's so cool because, all right, why am I waiting for questions? If we were to ask, I'll just make sure you aren't asking questions because this happened last week, didn't it? Oh, see? Hi, Rachel. I didn't see you come on. Who else has come on that I haven't? So if I put an M in the comments, it just means I'm trying to get it to scroll. And Murray's given us a thumb. All right, cool. Let's see if we can keep going. All right, what I wanted to talk about or share, and then you can ask your questions. They don't have to relate. I'm just filling in time to get people on, right? So invite people. Let's get some conversation going. So this card is saying about how did we get here, why, where do we go, and how. I talk about why are we here, or who are we? Where do we come from? And where are we going? And who are we? We're no one. Where are we going? Nowhere. You know what I mean? We're no one going nowhere, with nothing to do. We're no one going nowhere with nothing to do. So we just are. And we can get into what's our purpose. The purpose of your life is what you make it. Now that can go against what you believe, what you know, what you are conditioned to, who you follow, all of that. It doesn't bother me. You can believe and know and experience and do what you want. I tell you from my experience, and you can take it or leave it. There's no judgment, yeah? So in this card, can you see how it relates? It says, so I've never had this card before, so it's not familiar to me. You are flying above your life. So your perspective, I talk about it as perspective, you're raising in your frequency and you're viewing from above. So I call that your perspective, yeah, or high frequency. Unaware of your true reality. The feathers you hold are not your own. And are gifted or must be returned someday. So is that the body? Heaven is before you. Because you're no one going nowhere with no thing to do. You just are. Heaven is before you. You know, we're searching. Let me just check for questions. Good morning. Good morning. We are searching, right? A lot of us, we say we're searching. But what we're searching for, if you heard that, what we're searching for is pretty much what is creating the search. So if you stop, heaven is before you. The dreams are coming true. Heaven is before you. I spoke about a few weeks ago, I think it was in this group, around when we ask a question. If we get into that spiraling of, why is this happening? What am I to do about it? How can I get clarity on it? And all of that sort of human ego stuff. We go round and round and round and round and round. And I spoke about when that happens, to go direct. Heaven is before you. Heaven is here. Okay? What makes it hell is that. There is no heaven and hell as such. It is all here. What makes it painful and suffering is your perspective of it. Are you flying? Are you flying above it? Another analogy is what I use is the tornado. Are you in the center of the tornado, or the shrapnel hitting you in the face of the tornado? Where are you? Are you in your core, or are you moving through your world from the debris and trying to navigate cows smacking you in the head, like in the movie Twister, yeah? Come back to center. Ask, direct. Just not even a question, just go direct. Every time you get pulled out into the blur, right, your reality that seems to be like hell at some points, pull yourself back in and go direct. However you want to do that. I listen, I close my eyes, I view. Listening, the frequency, ride it, takes you direct access to Supreme Source Consciousness. Okay? Practice. It is there. Heaven is before you. At the top here it says, heaven is where you find it. Beautiful. So cool. Becca, good morning. You came across my news feed, so I thought I would check you out. Check me out, Becca. How you doing? And Rachel, I take it to mean body. Yeah. Welcome, Rachel. I'm not sure. Kat's here too. So this Monday group, it's every Monday. I take questions, any questions, but because sometimes questions are far and few between, we tend to go into these mystical musings because I'm happy to share what I know or what comes up in the field. Now, I wanted to talk about love in a way, in that it comes up regularly around how we feel these vibrations, and then how we attach to another person. So it's more, I mean, there's different levels and layers. So bear with me and ask questions. And if I miss your question, oh, good. Thanks, Becca. Whether that means you're doing great or I'm doing great, either way, it's good. What was I saying? Love, frequency, different levels, different layers of understanding how we experience each other. And relationship or relating tends to be what screws us up the most. Do you agree? In some way, it's what screws us up the most. Or our perception of it is what we feel does that, because again, it's just about your perspective or your perception of a situation that makes it heaven or hell on earth. That's it. So when you raise your frequency, when you illuminate, so the energy work that we do assists us to illuminate, bring in more light, be more light, we then are able to see more clearly why things happen and what the learning is from that. And remember, our purpose is what we make it. So I know that that's going to get some people contemplating, but that's what it's about. I'm not telling you what to think or feel, or I'm not telling you anything really. I'm just sharing my direct experiences of from where I sit, where I tread the water of life, which we talked about today too, Jennifer, is that I sit here like an avatar and I'm watching from here. Because if we watch from any higher, it's what's called God consciousness. It's a whiteout. We are no thing. We are no thing. We're going nowhere, and we have no thing to do. Okay, but that's at it's another way of looking at it outside what we call the general mind, because there's universal consciousness, or the universal mind as well. It's different levels. So we're always going, what level of understanding, basically. If you're listening to me, it's like, where is she speaking on right now? So ask. Just say, is that relevant to everyday general life of getting up, going to work, right? Or on a spiritual path, is this, I mean, everything is spiritual, there's no separation, but to just try to explain it a little bit clearer, is this when you are advanced in your spiritual practice and you are able to access other doorways, so to speak, to get a greater understanding of, you know, your senses open. You have more ability to see, feel, sense, know, as I always say. Okay, am I making sense? Is this interesting? Do you want to talk about something else? I'm just going to talk until somebody asks a question. It's what I do. All right, so why, when we are attracted to somebody, why does it hurt? Why do we feel pain? Why do we experience suffering? Any answers? My tea's cold now. Any ponderings? So again, different levels of understanding, and some of them will contradict each other depending on where you're viewing from or what you're able to access through the veils or through your there's sheaths, or you know, the more that you can move through, and we do that through the ajna. There's processes, so I don't really want to go into that, but if you're interested, you can message me and I'll let you know where you can get some information, or where I will where I have taught it or where I will be teaching it. When we are going through the veils, so I call it viewing, but there's different ways of viewing, how we access more than what we can see just with our general human sensory perception, right? So with these eyes, when we use the three eyes as a triangle, and we're traveling through the middle of that to the one point, it's one-pointedness, and we're following that one point. And as we do, doorways open, doorways open, doorways open, doorways open. We have more capacity to see, feel, sense, know, taste, smell, hear, right? Any questions? Am I making sense? I'm not sure. Okay. So I'm going all over the shop. That's what I do, but I will try and bring it all back to make some relative sense. Why are we connected to somebody? Human beings on an egoic level connect through wound. Have a contemplation or a pondering about. You might have to go back a bit, or it might be how you still are connecting with people. There's no judgment, all right? This is just about looking at how you are in the world and seeing how this can be shifted slightly to get more clarity. Because we turn up somewhere at a group, at a barbecue, at a party, it could be any gathering, or we meet somebody at the shops and we start to chat while the kids are playing or whatever. We start to talk or look for similarities. And what most of us do or have done is we connect, we look for the same wounding. It's an unconscious thing. Let's have a think about that. You know, someone says, oh, I live here or I live there. Oh, yeah, I had a friend who lived there. Like, we're always trying to connect. How can we connect and have similarities, right? So what we tend to do over time, some people do it very quickly, but if you think about it, not everybody, but I'm generalizing, I have to generalize on these things, that we will eventually find a similar wound and we will bond on that wound. We will bond on that wound. Did we have a crappy childhood where we bullied at school? Were we sexually abused? Were we physically abused? Were we verbally abused? Were we, do we have a disability of some, or a seemingly disability of some description, a learning disability, or whatever, you know, we are labelled with through our conditioning, okay? And then how we moved through the world and how that impacted us, we will bond on that. I used to say, because most of my adult life I've been a trauma therapist, so I know about this stuff, right? But energetically we do it too. Energetically we have these vortices. They're like chakras, but they're not quite chakras. They're a little bit different. And they pull in the experiences. I've talked about this before on some of the Facebook Lives. They pull in the experiences that you need to propel yourself forward, or they'll push out, they will, like an antenna, they're sending out the signals to people about how to treat you, right? How to treat you. So right now, I'm sending out signals unconsciously. Well, not really. Right? This is why I'm bringing it up, because it's daily that I look at this for myself. I do my work daily, right? I'm not perfect, but I'm seeing it. Every person that crosses my path, every single person that crosses my path is an aspect of myself and is showing me something, usually how I love myself or how I don't love myself. And it is exactly the same for you. It's a metaphor of, see, it's not scrolling, so I'm going to have to check the messages every now and then. I might get my phone on so I can see. So let me just see here. So Whitney, good morning, Whitney. I would love an intuitive reading if that's what you're doing, love and light. Yeah, making perfect sense. Becca says, what about loving someone at a different time? Like I was head over heels in love with my husband at first, and now it feels the opposite. That's what I'm talking about. So we're going to get to that. So I'm just going to have to remind myself to scroll because it's not automatically scrolling. I'll see if I can do it, see it on my phone. All right, so what we're getting to is see more clearly. Sorry. Things happen. Oh, and Robin. Good morning, Robin. Okay, I can see the things on my phone. So I'll just put it there. All right, so where was I? So we connected. So Becca, you have your little antenna. Your husband has his little antenna. Beep, 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 beep. You're resonating at the same frequency because woundings hold in the physical body, but they're an energetic. They're a frequency. What frequency are you resonating at? And you will pull people of a similar frequency. We can call it, we can look at it on the physical or an energetic. It's the same thing, right? It's the same thing. For 20 years, I worked in trauma therapy, family therapy, you name it, right? Physical, emotional, psychological. I'm telling you, as an energy practitioner, as a medicine woman, it's the same thing, okay? We just overlay. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. It's not easy, but it's beautiful once you get this. So on that real physical level, hi, Dorina. Oh, all these new people finding me. Woo! And I don't know how to pronounce your name. Oh, it might be Diana, actually. It's just spelled differently. Yeah, Diana. And Ruth, welcome, everybody. So I'm just talking about love, okay? And then we can get into some readings, but so we have these antennas. We're pulling people in and we're pushing them away. We're telling them through our frequency how to treat us. So if we are disrespecting ourselves, people will come in and we will feel disrespected. If we are lacking anything, People will come into our world and show us where we lack. So it's beautiful because all we have to do is look into our world to see what we need. Okay? Relationships give it to you very quickly if it's really intense. So at these higher levels of, when I say higher, I don't mean better, I just mean it's a higher frequency. So, you know, when we talk about twin flames and soulmates and all of that, it's a similar thing. It's just so much more intense, and it can last a day, 2 days, a week, a year, 2 years, of full-on intensity, right? And I'll write a book about this, and in fact I will, about twin flame and soulmate and all of that sort of stuff. I don't want to label it because what I found is that, I'll go into that in a moment, but on a more sort of general everyday level, we're drawn to that that person, right? For the experience, think about what that person makes you feel like. Or for those of you that are maybe no longer feeling the pull to that person, think about what originally brought you together, what that felt like, and why you kept returning. You kept returning. Okay. I'm going to change my words. Most of you kept returning, okay, because of how that person made you feel. You weren't returning to the person, you were returning to the feeling, okay? When you get that, your life will shift. Hey, Lauren, I was talking about you earlier. I was saying about the vision cards, the sacred vision cards, and how the raven took off with one. So anyway, so Lauren's here. I was telling you about her earlier. So let's see. So Catherine said, yes, people are our mirrors. It's actually even more than that. So on one level, yes, they're a direct reflection. On another, it's not a mirror as we know it to be. It's a bit more complex, but yeah, we could say that. So I'm just reading some of these. I'm going to answer this way. All right. If you believe there is one true flame, right? Whether it's a soul flame or a twin flame, you know, there's all different names and labels for them now, right? But if you believe there's one, then that's what it will be. Because I said at the beginning that your purpose is what you make it. When you understand that that energy of the twin, let's just call it the twin for ease of explanation, but it's much more to it than, you know, the twin and the soul flame and all of that. There's ascension helpers, catalysts, and all sorts of people that come in to assist you along that path. And when you understand how it works, you'll see them. You'll see them. And then when they come in and activate you and then move off, it's not like, oh, that person did this, that, or the other, or what's wrong with me? Why didn't that person, you know, that person loved me so much and worshipped me for like so many days and then disappeared, okay? Because that's what happens. It's like there's this full-on energy, and we feel it, and our brain goes, oh, that feels like, right? And usually it feels like something like those first initial like rushes of love hormones, let's call it, right? Or after you've orgasmed and you are in, you know, you're in ecstasy or whatever, right? It will feel like aspects of that. So when you feel the energy of that, your brain goes, oh, that person's for me. It's not necessarily that way, right? And this is what does your head in. This is crazy maker. Hey, Janet. And Robin's asking, how can I fix my relationship for better communication? So I'll try and sort of weave all this in. If you understand that what you're looking for or what you're being drawn to is what you're needing in yourself, it's the hole in yourself. It's what you, if you were able to give it to yourself, you would not be drawn to that person anymore. That sounds a bit harsh. I'll rephrase it. When you give yourself what you need to be fulfilled and whole, you will not search it from externally outside yourself anymore. So when you do come into commune, let's say, with another, it's as your own full individual self. Complete, you're whole, right? The other person comes along, if you're complete and whole and they're not, you can then choose, that's your free will. Your 1% free will is, do I choose that or do I not choose that? That is it. Yes or no. That person comes along, they've still got a lot of work to do. It's your choice. Do I hang around and watch this person go through their human egoic, ups and downs and crazy making stuff? Or do I say, thank you, and you move on? We made ourselves nutso with this stuff, right? What is it that you need? Look at your relationships. What are they giving you? Male, female, even stuff, like your animals. What do you get from your animals? If you're an animal person, I'm an animal person, right? I'm not so much anymore because, over years they move on. So I'm not replacing them because I don't need what I find I'm needing, I give to myself, and then I don't need somebody external to give to me. So my relationships aren't about my need. Now that might sound harsh and a bit like in your face, but it's how it is. And when you can understand that about yourself, then how you work on better communication with your partner, if you want more or a better way of communicating with your partner, it is us. It's the person who wants it to take the first step and to model. You might have to model for a while. That's what a lot of my work is, just modeling. How I am in the world is me modeling how I want to be treated. How I am in the world is what I want to be reflected, if that makes sense. I haven't mastered it. I'm still in mastery, right? But let me see if this. So how can I fix relationship for better communication? The other thing is around trust. I've written a blog about trust, so you can go on Rhombus Healing Arts website, and my blog's there. It's got lots of different stuff. I talk about all this sort of stuff, but there's one about trust. Pardon me. And it's very different. I don't get into trust. I don't want to trust other people. I don't put my trust in other people, and I don't expect people to trust me in the way that most people understand trust. The reason being, trust to me is a little lazy. Trust is where we think we know somebody and we go to bed and we wake up the next day and then we want that person, or we expect that person to be the same as when we knew them the day before. And if you expect me to be that, you will be pleasantly or unpleasantly surprised, because you won't know what you're getting with me, because I'm all of the rainbow. If I show you I'm green today and my frequency's green, or I'm more red today, or I'm more fiery today, or I'm more watery today, or whatever. In half an hour, I'll be a totally different color. I experience deeply every emotion pretty much every day, right? I just feel everything every day. So how are you then? So I'm just reading the messages. So how are you then to trust who I'm going to be tomorrow? And then if I'm not who you think I'm going to be tomorrow, have I, what's the word? Mistrust. Oh, what's the word? Come up with the word. Have I trampled over your trust? Or is it that you've placed your trust in a place and expected it to stay constant when nothing stays constant? And then when it shifts so quickly, you go, oh, but you were that yesterday and now you're this. So now I'm disappointed. So whose problem's that? Sorry, it's true. Oh my God. Anyway, let's see what these, how do you raise one's frequency? Just last week, I tried explaining this mirror and self-care truth and couldn't communicate the right words. This is so true. And you were expressing it perfectly. Oh, thank you, Dorina. I appreciate that, because half the time I don't know what on earth I'm saying. All right. In these free Facebook Lives, there's only so much time to sort of get to questions and talk about things that come up and feel important. So everything that I'm talking about, just know there's so much more depth to. So it's just like the tip of the iceberg. It's really just giving you things to contemplate, yeah? And then maybe next week, because we're on every week, so maybe next week then you can have questions about it, or you can message me in the chat, and at some point I'll go back and I try and look through, and not always, because obviously I'm doing a lot of stuff and I can't go through everything all the time, but I do try to get back through the questions, because sometimes I do miss them. All right, so yeah, the frequency that we're at. How do we raise frequency? Again, that's a whole, big, complex topic, but the simplicity of it is when you drink coffee, you change your consciousness slightly, yeah? Everything you ingest or you do is shifting you. I think what you're saying, so I'm being a bit flippant here, but I think what you're saying, singing, yeah, so Murray's saying singing. How you change your frequency to stay there is, that's your spiritual development, right? That's your spiritual development. That's your evolution. And what happens is that you work on it. So there's different techniques. There's a lot of techniques. In fact, like I could go on for weeks just telling you and teaching you different techniques. Point is, actually love and understanding this, love in the way of, not in the egoic way, not in how we have been taught to love as humans, right? Loving from a place of purity is what will bring what we call the assemblage point higher in resonance. It's a soul light. It sits when it's in its correct place. It sits slightly to the left outside the heart, just at the shoulder. Now, when we're traumatized or in shock, it drops. Lower density consciousness, lower frequency, is at the hips and lower centers, yeah? Higher consciousness, activation, illumination is higher in the body. And we have this grid. Where was I going with that? So the assemblage point can drop. When we fall in love, it raises. It can often come back to that place for a period of time. So this is important, because it doesn't matter where. So I'm going off on a tangent a little bit, but bring me back if need be. If I don't answer your question, bring me back. Okay. When we are in love, we illuminate. We raise in frequency for a matter of time, and that's why we feel particular ways. It is a chemical reaction as well. We have love hormones, yeah, all of that. But there's also energetically, we illuminate, right? It doesn't last because, or that period, that honeymoon period generally doesn't last in general love, right? Not this purity love. Because we end up going human again, what I call human, lower density. We drop to the frequency of our conditioned understanding of what love is and how that person should or shouldn't be behaving or being or acting or experiencing, right? You think about it. They're perfect. Love is blind. Love isn't blind. This is beautiful. Love is not blind. Love is high assemblage point, seeing the person as they really are, this beautiful soul or aspect of the soul, a reflection of you, in fact, an aspect of you. You're seeing their truth, right? Then your humanness kicks in and goes, oh yeah, but didn't call me, or you know, we went out to dinner but didn't speak to me, or didn't open the car door, or whatever, you know, whatever your stuff is that you start to bring up, right? That's what I call your humanness comes in, and that humanness will wreck everything, pretty much. Again, I'm being flippant, but you know, pretty much. You think about it, your relationships, what comes in, it's all going beautiful, and then what? Start to go, oh yeah, but it might be, you know, how much better would it be if we, for instance, communicated? What would it be like if we communicated this way? So I'm just feeling into that, because it's completely contradicted at another level. Okay, so everything I say is often contradicted, completely flipped around, upside down, back to front at the next level. And that's one of them. So that's why I paused. So let's just see. So what would you say to a person? What would you say for a person? Okay, that's an interesting question, yeah. So Robin's saying, what would you say for a person to have a child of illness, to raise the child out of illness? I would love to help my child. I love him so much. Yes. There's a few different ways to answer that. So the first thing that comes in to me is about love and what that actually is and how we love. So a lot of what I say is or can be controversial, because it just doesn't fit often the molds that we are grown up with, right? So I'm not saying take it completely for your new truth. I'm saying just contemplate it as another option to bring into what you already know. Okay. As a parent, when we love, or actually not even as a parent, as a family member, I've been through this numerous times, so I'll tell this story because I'll tell an aspect of it. Because when your love keeps somebody here, or keeps them in, I'm not saying you, Robin, but just generalizing here for others as well, keeps somebody in a particular state, well, this is a bit controversial, but this is what's coming up, right? So it's our love and what we want for them may not be what is going on for them, right? So illness, disease, pain, suffering, it's our perspective. It's our perspective. So I'm not saying to you that it's not difficult, and I'm trying to generalize so we all get something from this. But when my grandfather was dying, I was his carer. And I brought him back from death 3 times by accident. I can laugh now, and he's passed away now. He's passed away now because by the time I actually realized, like really in my core realized that he needed to go. He needed to go. And it was me keeping him here for me because I loved him and I wanted him with me. Right? I'm not saying you're doing that. I'm just giving you another example of how we hold on to things, of how it should be. And if we're strong, we can override that and make things occur, and we have no idea that we're doing it. We create our reality. I'm not saying that you're creating your son's illness, so to speak. But my want and my love for my grandfather, every time they called me into the hospital, you know, he was in care, but he would end up in hospital and they'd say, come and say goodbye. And I'd go in and they thought he was dead. And I would say goodbye and I would rub his arm and he would start talking to me. I'd be like, okay. I'd go get the nurse and say, where are my grandfather's teeth? Because he was trying to talk to me, and the male nurse just sort of went, what are you talking about? Because they wrote him off. He's dead. He came back to life. He kept coming back to life. Why? Because of the love. Because of my love. So I had to change how I loved to allow for love for him, to allow him to go. Do you get that? How do we extrapolate that then to your question? All right, I can hear you. You're not answering my question. I can hear you. Same with my animals. My llama, I just put down, she's 20 odd, very old, but she's laying in the paddock. And my animals don't die, but they then go into organ failure and everything because my love keeps them going, but it's not enough to complete. Their body has given out. They need to go, right? So there's all these different ways that I've learned how we love. Different levels, right? On a sort of human's everyday egoic sort of level. I hope you understand what I mean by that. That's not an insult. That's just how it is, to get a bit of an idea of how we categorize, because that's what humans do, right? We categorize, otherwise we don't understand. Our love is, again, what we want for ourselves, right? To that degree of what need is being fulfilled. Another example, one of my daughters years ago now, she was in hospital. They told me she may not make it. She was in another state. I literally dropped everything, got on a plane, went over there. While I was over there, it was every day. It wasn't about my love for her as such. It was about keeping centered and working on what organ are we going to bring online today. I talked to the doctors. What's the most important that you're worried about today? And focusing on that organ and just going, okay, one day at a time, one day at a time, one day at a time. The next bit, the next bit, the next bit, right? It's a very different way of being in the world. And yes, maybe a little odd, but what if we all were like that? What if we were able to see that, I don't even know how to put this. Do you understand what I'm saying? Am I making sense or not? Maybe I'm not making sense. Let me just read some of these. What is the best way to deal with grief of losing someone you love and letting them go? All right, Catherine, I'll get to that in a moment. Robin, what I want to say to you, because I know I'm sort of going out wide to answer your question. I suppose what I'm saying, that when I do work, so my medical intuitive work is very different to my general energy work, right? When I do the medical intuitive work, I am in that state of purity, of love. There is nothing else. It is not about the person as a physical being. It's linking to all that there is, and it's such a high frequency, and that's what creates the change. So if I were to give you anything, I suppose I went round the world and back again to give you this, is that to practice loving. And as I'm saying this, I'm realizing that some of you won't really get what I'm saying, and that's okay. So that don't worry. What I'm saying is to feel, not your want or need, to feel into that other soul, just on that purity of not wanting or needing. So do you get what I'm saying? Like if there's illness and we want that person to get well, no, what you focus on grows. I think that's a better way of putting it. What you focus on grows. If you focus on just that pure love of that being, not that pure love of that being sick. When somebody asks me, I never wish anybody well. I don't wish anything. Wishing is a human thing. I don't wish you well. You are well, so be it. You are well, right? Command. Be in directorship of your life. Start stepping out, right? If you're worried about judgment, this is another thing leads to love. If you worry about judgment, this is what bastardizes your relationships, judgment. If you can stay out of judgment, and if you can do that, then you can stand forward and step forward. And I mean, really, a few years ago, I couldn't be sitting here saying this because I'd be worried about, oh, am I saying the wrong thing? Are people going to judge me? I don't care. I do not care what you think of me. I'm here to share and to be of some service, however that might be helpful to you, right? That's it. If you don't, I've said this before, you don't have to like me. You don't have to, but if you're getting something that's helpful, beautiful, beautiful, right? If we're in judgment, we straight away go out of love. We go out of the, are you getting it? Or, I mean, you may not be, because sometimes I don't make sense, right? But if you're in, talking about raising frequency, how do you raise frequency? Well, if you're working on bringing heaven to earth, for instance, so that would be the grid of the body, the triangle. We've got the two triangles, and so heaven and earth, mother and father, they come together, they create the Merkaba, or the star, the light body. Activates our heart, our small toroidal field, which then activates the large toroidal field. So we get a double tubed torus thing happening, much like the image in the back, all the lines, and right. So that's all going around. Why did I bring that up? Frequency. Because it's about this different type of understanding love and relating and feeling. When you attach the story to the feeling, that's where we get into a little bit of shakiness, right? So, for instance, somebody asked about the communication. So, where does the judgment come in? Just as an example, could be anything, but if somebody's not communicating well, and then we're judging them for that, where in us, what is our play within that, and how have we continued to allow that to happen? So it could be, again, just an example, have we not spoken our own truth, and then over time perpetuated a particular behavioural flow between the two people? And then, you know, I mean, there's numerous things that we could say about any of the topics, right? Has it allowed that person to hide when they needed to hide from the self? So in communication, if we are standing and speaking our truth, no matter what, what the repercussions of that are, and maybe not wanting to deal with the repercussions of what that is. So, you know, I'm just putting it out there. Do you know, this is for everybody and myself, do you speak your truth? Do you stand in, you are feeling what's best for you, and how, you know, from your intuition, from a deep place, you're feeling this, yet you don't say. Because if you're doing that, or any aspect of that, you'll, somewhere along the line, you'll get hit, right? Which means things will happen to constrict you and bring discomfort to wake you up. Now you can choose, this is your free will, you can choose to be aware of this and act on it before the hit comes, and then you don't get the hit because you're able to choose yourself. So it's not about saying, oh, leave the husband or leave the wife or whatever. It's about going, what can I shift within myself to shift my reality? As you are, the world shall be. As you are, the world shall be. As you shift that within yourself, the reflection on the external will show. So, and I think it was Robin was saying this about your child as well, that it's a slightly different thing, but it's still about the internal. As you are, the world shall be. If you are working or moving through the world, it's easier said than done, mind you, in that state of love, or in that state of kindness. If you can't get to love, get to kindness. You'll be seeing that more and more in the world, right? So I'm just aware that everything that I've just said there, it's just the tips of the teachings. So it's almost like, I hope it's enough just to have a little seed to contemplate, because those little bits on their own are far from the full story, but I don't want to go into like deep teachings or anything. But so grief, what else have we got? So we've got grief. Oh, hi Pauline and Catherine, and who else we got? We've got, okay. I worked with autism a lot over the years. I worked with, so my job was as a trauma therapist, and I literally was the only one of its type in Perth that went to the home and worked one-on-one with the children, and went to the schools and helped the teachers and schools understand and do classroom audits and all of that for behaviour and sensory stimulation and all of those things that people yeah, anyway, yeah, I get what you say. I get that. So let me just catch up on some of these. Yes, Pauline. Yes, my grandmother just had neurosurgery, like literally 2 weeks ago. She was home yesterday or the day before. She's 92. She's perfectly well. And what I did was, I knew that she'd be perfectly well because I asked, right? So I didn't worry about her. What I worried about was my mother worrying about her. And often I will put out, so you might see occasionally, I will put out, so this is, I think this is important, or not important, but a good practice, that if things are happening in your life and you need support, put it out there, but don't put it out. So what I started doing, I was putting out on Facebook that things were happening, and I wanted people to hold that person in their heart. So just be in love, right? Sound like a crazy wild hippie, don't I? I didn't want people to send energy or send anything. I just wanted them to be in love, with that soul in mind, right? So, because you think about this, when, and it's about, again, it's about modeling and teaching, because if I tell you something, for instance, this is how we condition. So if I told you that I lost, like I just lost $500, your reaction might be, oh my God, like, you know, like, no. Now you're adding negative energy, or you're adding your energy, which is from a different perspective, to my field that I am not necessarily choosing to have in my field. So there are a lot of things that I don't tell people because I don't want the reaction that grows in an area that I'm not cultivating, if that makes sense. I'm very careful. So I might tell people things, but I'll let them know how I would prefer them to react and respond if they want to help me or help my family or whatnot, right? Because that's how powerful we are. And that actually happened to me. I was in France and I had all my money in my little wallet. Actually, Lauren, I'm not sure if you're still there, but Lauren was with me. And I told 2 people, and from their reaction, I stopped telling other people, like, you know, I mean, it wasn't that I went around telling people, it's just that I had no money. I had to, like, literally that was all the money I had. And I had to then say, oh, I can't do that because, you know, I now don't have any money. But that was the day that I had a major heart awakening with the mother. So it cost me $500, but it is freaking priceless. And I would pay that again in a heartbeat to have the experience that I had, right? Sometimes we call it seed money. Sometimes these experiences are like seeding for something bigger to grow. So I know, wow, I've gone all over the shop. So just, yeah, Pauline, beautiful. I agree. So Robin works with, oh, there's two. No, Pauline works with autistic children. Ah, and Robin, okay. Where there is judgment, there is no love. Exactly. It pulls you out of the, yeah, so that's sort of what I'm saying. It's practice. It's just practice. And it's not like practice for a week and then you've got it. It's like literally, it's a constant refining. That's why I call it mastery. You know, there's certain things I'm mastering. And I used to explain it like my spiritual practice is like I'm an Olympic athlete. And that's how much I train. And it's not training hard. It's just my life is now my meditation. And I'm still mastering it. But, you know, when you're learning to play the violin, or you're in an orchestra and you play violin or clarinet or you know, whatever instrument, to have got there, the amount of hours and practice to master that is not a week. So don't be hard on yourselves. It's just a start, like one step at a time. Just keep practicing. If you need support, I'm here. I'm here every Monday, you know, for free if you want more in-depth support. You know, I have half-hour consults or I have full consults. You know, there's support, or your family and friends if they're in line. So what's this? Robin says, when I feel the tingles throughout my chest, when I feel the love of my son. Yeah. Beautiful. Okay. So Lauren says, still here, I remember well, Paris. Oh, the lessons are perfect. That was one of my best lessons. Oh my goodness. That whole trip, it was, oh man, we got to write a book about that. Actually, maybe we need to write a whole series of books. So Pauline's saying, working with these children teaches you many lessons. Exactly. Yes, I've learned so much from you. Okay. So are there any questions? I know I've gone all over the shop and I haven't really gone into really the multidimensional types of all the different frequencies, but basically, I'll say this for those of you that are in this space. Okay. And I'm flipping back to the autism as well. And I know there's a spectrum, you know, so I don't know where on that. However, the access of those that don't think the same is amazing. And I'm not labeled with anything. I refuse to be categorized as anything. Yet my brain, I say my brain is sparkly. I have a sparkly brain. It glitters. I don't see the world, I never have, the same as others. And I am perfectly fine with that. And I would prefer to live in the world that I live in than in the world that people have tried to make me live in, because I have more access and more clarity and more information than most of those teachers or whatever could have, living from the vantage point of the brain that they've been conditioned to view the world from, right? Now, that's what, yeah, it's sort of what happens when we label people, or, you know, it's just how we experience. Do you know, there's somebody called Harrison Klein. So Harrison Klein is a spiritual teacher. He's a beautiful friend of mine. He's in America, and he was fully locked in autistic till he was 27. No communication. We call him Mr. Big Bang because he woke up. He's a fully awake, enlightened human being. He went through it, bang, one big bang. I went through the same process over many years. My physical body, and I'd probably guess that most of your physical bodies could not have survived that nuclear implosion that happens within us for that I mean, some people call it Kundalini. That's only one aspect of it. It's just, there's so much else that goes on. It's the implosion that happens, and the heat is like nuclear fission, you know. It literally is, right? So our physical bodies have to build and prepare for that amount of shifting and changing. My point is that Harrison, you can look him up, Harrison Klein, he didn't speak. He moved through the world in, you know, in that way, and was labeled, yet he's the most amazing human, one of the most amazing humans I know. And hilariously funny. And anyway, look him up on Facebook. And he's always putting out quotes and stuff. But he also, I've interviewed him a couple of times. He came on some interview series. And we both see the world very similar. We've talked about what we experience, and it's very similar, what we see along the way and all of that. And we both agree that the field, or your reality, what happens in the world, is a direct reflection of how you love yourself, how you're caring for yourself, or the self, I say as well. And there's a distinction. The self is the higher aspects of the self. Yourself is like the human self, yeah? So you can look at it on different categories of self. And then there's source self and all that. But don't worry about all of that. Just, you know, we just look at yourself and the self. And because I know some of you are on the self levels and need to hear it from there, and some of you are on your self levels and need to hear it from that perspective, right? So loving the self, if you can't get to love, start with kindness. How can you be kind to yourself? So how can you be compassionate to the self? How can you, because if you can't get there, then for somebody to tell you to start loving, it's going to be just too hard. And I say that from experience with extremely traumatized children who their own parents were abusing them and didn't want them. So their idea of the self or themselves, if your own family can't love you, how on earth you know, it was my experience of them and working with them for years, like in their home, seeing them, like intensive support. It wasn't just, oh yeah, I'd go see them once a week, right? Intensive support. I got to know these little humans like my own children. And they weren't able to get to love for quite a while. We worked on like, and how to like themselves, or how to like something in the world. So if we were walking, because a lot of them were kicked out of school because their behaviours were so extreme. So I would work out ways to educate them in sparkly brain mode. Like we would walk around the park and count trees, or we would look at nature and learn from nature. And whenever I saw that they had a little moment, catch it, because that's love, like that's a little glimmer into, right? How do we get that? Oh, wow, that's beautiful. Reflected back. Does that make sense? I know it's a little out there. I don't know if that makes sense. I am a little out there. I'm always out there. So let's see. Yes, I've learnt so much from him. They are love. What is his name? Harrison Klein. Is that who you're talking about? I'll put it in there. He's one of my friends, so you can look him up, but I'll write it in here. There we go. So I think Robin said, what is his name? I think that's who you're asking about, Harrison. Anyway, yeah. So looking at nature assists, because this is also for the spiritual development too, that when you're first really starting to see and sense and know, for me it happened with trees and nature, mainly trees, and then it went to you know, rivers and all of that sort of stuff. When I say that, it's like you get information from them, is what I'm saying. It's like light language. You can hear when the trees sort of bristle. It's like language, and you know, it's almost telepathic, right? For me, it started with nature in that way. So yes, looking at the sky, looking at trees, being in nature. Then it went to the birds for me, and then other animals, and lastly humans. And I feel like so a lot of my students have had similar experiences, that it starts that way. And not all of us are the same, but what I feel about that is that there's so much baggage with the human, you know. So to see the energy of the human was, in particular ways, was harder for me than nature and birds and animals, right? It's almost like I got all of that, and then to connect with humans in that way, or people, let's say people. Humans sounds a bit weird, but took even more practice, because when you're looking at a human body, like I said, there's so much other conditioning attached to us that goes with what that means. And for me, that was sort of harder conditioning to break out of than the nature and the animals. So that's just my feel on it. Other people might have some other. Murray's waving. Why are you waving, Murray? Are you going? Are you going, Murray? He's waving. So feathers are mine. All right, so are there any other questions? What else do I want to tell you? I just talk until questions come, so just throw them in if you've got questions. So I don't know if you saw at the beginning I pulled this card to see whether it was going to lead us, and it says it's vision, and it says heaven is where you find it, and that's sort of where we've gone around. Really, it actually talks of feathers. I'll read it again because most of you weren't on when I read this. So it says, the question is no longer how did we get here and why, but where do we go and how? We are placed on the path of life to experience, interact with, and be challenged by its dangers. Paradise is not a place, but a state of mind. We must heed the advice to stop and smell the roses, for it is possible that in our fervour to search for the elusive, we sacrifice our Garden of Eden for one tree. It is not so much in what you see, but the way in which you see it. You are flying above your life, unaware of your true reality. The feathers you hold are not your own. They are the gift that must be returned one day. Like the dream catcher and the medicine wheel, they hold change. New colors become brilliant and luminous on your journey, and you wear the feathers of distinction, the mark of a seasoned, soulful traveler. Your hands, that's the picture, your hands reach out to hold back illusion. Heaven is before you. Your dreams are coming true. Isn't that beautiful? And it's pretty much what we've been talking about. So I pulled this card at the beginning. So I wanted to talk about love in a way, and relationships and whatnot. And then we pulled this card, and it's so spot on, really, because we've been talking about, heaven and earth, and whatnot. But, lots of hearts. Yay, I love hearts. So don't forget, you might not have heard me, but if you feel that any part of this might be helpful to your groups or your family or friends, please share, because they won't find me otherwise. Just share, and they can watch the recording, and then they'll know that every week we're here, 6 p.m. Australian Western Standard Time, and you can ask your questions. Today, sometimes it's just like I'm reading energy. You might want to know about an illness or something, and I can, look at chakras, meridians, all sorts of things, heart channels, grid, whatever. It's all energy stuff. Today it was more energy on a slightly more mystical. This was more of a mystical musing, so that's why I put that in there too. That if I don't feel like we're getting sort of a lot of questions around particular things, then I tend to just talk about something that I feel would be helpful on some level. Good morning, Lexi. So we got quite a few new people this week, and people come and go. So, so a recap, I suppose, if there aren't any other. I'm loving the hearts. Thank you. You've got to love a heart, hey? But yeah, if you're loving it, share so that other people do it, because I mean, the more questions we get, the more, we expand with the answers, and your questions actually help other people when they see the replay. They might have the same stuff. Thank you, Lauren. Loving it. Loving you. Have to catch up soon, find out about your trip. So, recap. When you're drawn to somebody, like don't be stuck in your head, really. You know, I don't want you to go to your head. Really, the idea is that when you're drawn, when you feel that energy, a lot of you are starting to feel energy or feel your body tingling, fluttering, heat activation, cool activation. Sometimes you might get pains in the chest, all this sort of stuff. But you're drawn to a person. And if you allow that without the judgment to come in, I'm just feeling into this because I was about to say something that is not completely truth. I mean, it's true, but on another level, it's completely the opposite. So, all right. So if you're having expansions, chest or heart expansions, so there's some of you that they're having heart expansions and they're being drawn to a particular person. On one level, be aware, or when I say be aware, I don't mean be aware, but I mean be conscious that when you start to resonate at a higher frequency and you are around other people that are coming into or in a transition of that frequency, you will feel it, and it will feel like you're just completely and utterly in love with that person. Okay. Now you can go with that. You have your free will to just be in the frequency and allow it and be and ride the wave. As soon as you start to bring judgment in, so this is on any level, as soon as you start to judge or bring the ego in and your wounds, which you, I won't say which you will, but there's part of the process, and I'm just going to bookmark that because I want to come back to that. When you start to do that, it starts to bring the relationship or the relating into almost like a dropping consciousness, right? So you're dropping down again. I hope that makes sense. On another level, when your heart opens, so you have that, like you're just in awe, you might have tears, you might be watching a movie and you just teary a lot and feeling a lot of love, right? It can be within moments or days that the mud comes up, your mud, your muck, your woundings, your memories come up. And sometimes they're really hard and they'll hit you. And so you've just had this bliss, and then it can be within moments. So actually, Lauren will remember this. she's saying thanks for R-ing. So Lauren, you might remember this, that when I was at the foot of the Black Madonna in Paris, where I lost that €500, not $500, 500 euro, right? All in one shot. That it must be in that taxi driver. That I gave that taxi driver a beautiful tip. Oh my God, he won't have to work the rest. Anyway, point is that we went into this little chapel, Le Bon Deliverance, the Lady of Deliverance, and boy, did she deliver me some whack to the heart. It was so much. I was with Charlotte Sophia McLeod as well, and Charlotte and I were kneeling, and tears just came. Both of us, we were holding hands, and tears just came. There was so much love. That I was just hit by this love that my little human could not hold. And it was beyond words, okay? That's not the point. The point is, by the time I walked to the back of the church, and Lauren was there too, so she's on at the moment. By the time I walked to the back of the church and people were signing the book, there was only about 5 of us there. Lauren, Ginny, myself, Carol, Jonathan and Shiloh, 6 of us. And I just walked out. I was sobbing, the ugly face sob. Do you know that cry? Like the liquid coming out of every orifice, sobbing in so much distress. This is what I'm talking about. This is one time. This was the most extreme, but it was the one time, so I use it as a teaching story. I knew what it was. So I was holding so much light that my physical body was struggling. And what it did was bring up all my crap. And oh boy, I have a lot, right? Came up to be felt, really felt and discharged so that my heart could stay open. And each time that happened, because there's not one heart opening, your awakening happens at different points, okay, until it's fully open. It happens every time. So when you open on any of these levels, because I know I'm talking a little out there, but you can use this template for any of your love relationships or relating, that you have this, I'm attracted to this person. It might not even be love. I'm attracted to this person. I have this feel, and then the judgment or your stuff starts to come up, but you don't know it's your stuff. It's your wounding. Remember at the start, I talked about we bond through our wounds, or we used to. We are no longer going to do that. I am no longer going to do that. If you want to bond with me, if you want to relate with me, it will not be on your wounds or my wounds. I'm not going to talk about that stuff to bond with you, and vice versa. We are no longer going to do that. We are changing the way that we are going to start relating for healthier relationships, right? Well, that's what I'm doing. I'm inviting you, if you like. So when you connect with somebody, and it could just be a girlfriend, like you've met a friend, a new friend, and then at some point the judgment comes in, and you're trying to get that person to be something from something you've been taught has to be that way, and it just ruins the relationship. So anyway, it's on every level, so I hope that's helpful. I feel like I'm going on a bit, so I might finish up soon. So if there's any questions, comments, anything else you want to know, share away. Share away. Oh, for those of you in Perth, probably not any of you. Jen was on before. I'm not sure if she's still there, but that's okay. So those of you that want to do the energy medicine, okay. So I'm multitasking. I'll tell you in a moment. This is the book from the cards. Thursday morning, I'm doing the Eden Energy Medicine study group. So we'll be doing some testing. I'll be teaching or going through the testing, self-testing and testing others. So if you want to come, message me and I'll tell you when and all the rest. It's $47 for the 2 hours. We do it evenings as well, once a month. So anyway, if you're interested in that, I just thought I'd put that out there for those I haven't been advertising it that much. The cards are Sacred Vision Oracle cards. And actually, Lauren, if you're still there, she introduced me. I said this at the beginning of how we used it on our road trip and how just in resonance this deck is with, or was, or is with both Lauren and myself. Lauren's a shaman, among other things, multi-talented. I'm more mystically inclined, but overall we're both medicine women. I don't generally use cards. I have tarot. I do the Thoth or the Thoth tarot occasionally, but it's not. I get my answers direct, so I'm more likely to just ask. But on these sorts of things, sometimes it's fun to I play really, and just use them as a support tool to see whether they are in line with actually what else is happening. And I found that this little deck, it's only a tiny little deck, but I really like it. So so I bought it because I had some experience with Lauren's deck. And for me to buy a deck, it's a big thing. If you don't know me, I don't buy books. I just don't do any of that anymore. I don't buy tools. I don't buy. I tell a lie. I did buy. So any of you coming for a session soon will experience these. I bought. I'll show you. Selenite. Okay, so selenite is a stone. It helps with pain. This is a pink selenite. Palm stone, but I use it on the body. You can use it for what we call the gates. So, you know, you can sort of massage between the hand gates or finger gates and the feet gates. Today, because the pink one is it's good for lots of things, but for emotion as well. So I actually was using this. I don't use crystal. I'm not a crystal person. Like, how I work with energy is really quite pure. I don't use tools. I'm the tool, right? So if I'm using tools, they have to be pretty damn good, is what I'm saying. Anyway, I used it on somebody today and just rubbed the lymphatic points on the back with it, and she seemed to enjoy it. So. But it was more around the emotional stuff, because sometimes the tools can add a little bit more. I mean, overall, our intention, when is placed with accuracy, can do all that the tools can do. But not all of us are at that point. So hence, you know, we can use cards to give us a little bit more clarity. We can use the pendulum. We can use all sorts of things. But remember, they're a tool, and you use them. Well, I use them more for fun now. But when I was using tools and regularly, it was until I had that access and didn't need the tool anymore. So, do you see what I mean? Otherwise, it becomes a crutch. You know, you say, oh, I can't get that answer because I don't have my cards. Oh, I can't tell you about that now because I don't have my pendulum with me. Or I can't give you, you know, I can't answer that for myself because I'm out and about and I don't have my crystals. No, you can do it. You can do it. So don't get caught up on the tools. They are just that, a tool. You have the capability of getting all the answers yourself when you practice and you have guidance. All right. So are there any other questions? think I've answered. If I've missed your question, please post it again. But I think we're going to probably finish up in a moment anyway. I think I've answered all the questions. Occasionally I miss some. So I've got, I think I missed one, but I can feel there was something about finding a new love, passing away, finding a new love. I don't think I answered that. Somebody passing away. Anyway, I feel that, but all right, so I'll end on this. I can't find the question. I just have a recall of there was something about somebody passing away and finding new love. Links into, you know, when I was talking at the beginning, if you didn't hear it, I talked about twin flame and soulmates and all that at the beginning. Not in depth, but in a different way. And the human or the vessel, the body that is showing up to you, we're all aspects of that source light, right? So we are the one within the one, right? We are the one within the one. So when somebody shows up to us and we fall in love with that person or the soul aspect of that person, that resonance can show up in anybody else. So to say we had our one true love and we'll never have another, I don't agree with. And I can tell you that from direct experience. Yeah, oh my goodness. And my twin I'm not with, but you don't need to be with them. And aspects show up in other people that have the same frequency that you can still experience the feeling of that. So it's not the same human vessel vehicle showing up, but the light that comes through to assist you on your journey. How do I say that? Is, I want to say is the same light, is the same. Might be going a bit out there for some people tonight, but it's a aspect of the diamond. If we are the diamond with all the cuts or aspects of the diamond, right? So each perspective that you look through is a different view, and each one of those is a person, but they're all part of this, the one. Then one aspect of that diamond is no longer here in physical. However, one of those other aspects can show to you and give you this, a similar, not the same because it won't be the same, a similar love, right? So I think I did answer it, but in a different way. I think I answered it before in saying just be open. If you're not open to it, if you think that there's only one for you and that's it, then that's how it will be, because you can create your own reality, right? If you understand it, and this is how I experience it, it's not my belief, I'm not thinking it, I've experienced this over and over and over again, and it hurts, and it's like getting your heart kicked across the room. But the more that it happens, the more you see, because every time it happens, you raise in frequency. So you constrict, you have shadow and darkness, but then the light comes in. So at the Black Madonna, I had the light come in and then the darkness. But as that darkness, see, it's how you look at it, as that darkness moved out, more light came in and I was able to hold more, right? The vessel can hold more. It's sort of a similar process. So it's not that you will forget that person or that aspect, because death is a doorway. So those particles of awareness that person is more part of you now than ever before. So it's just you being able to access that. It's the mind, it's our mind that gets in the way with all that sort of stuff. So again, it's practice, and I'm not saying that it's easy. So yeah. All right, I think I lost a few on that note. All right, I think we'll call it a night, and let me just check if there's any questions. All right, no more questions, it doesn't look like. So thank you. If it's your first time, we're here every Monday, same time. And I mean, there's lots of recordings from other weeks. Some are really good, some are okay. Depends on your preference. So you can go back through Rhombus Healing Arts Facebook page and look up some other things. I don't say what we talk about because it just takes too much time for me to go back through and work out what I said and then put it in. I know that would be helpful, but I just don't have the time to do that. So it's hit and miss. What's coming up? So Sunday sessions, I'll let you know. I did a post, but on September the 2nd, I think it is, or the first Sunday in September, Mystic Medicine Woman teachings on Sundays are back on, or Saturday evening if you're in America, or Sunday morning if you're in Australia, or I mean, there's so many other countries, but you'll see on the Facebook page. So they're free teachings Sunday, and they're more like, well, they're sort of like this, but they're more structured. I have planned what I'm going to teach. I don't plan these. I just talk about what feels relevant. And that's about it. Anyway, love you and leave you. And yeah, if you have any questions or if something comes up, post in the chat. And I get like the alerts most of the time that there's been a comment, and I will endeavour to try and answer it for you or steer in the right direction. So I am glad that you tuned in today too, Dorina, and both Robins. I appreciate you as much as you appreciate me, because I can't do this if people don't show up. So share it if you thought it's worth sharing, and then we'll have more people next week. Ciao, ciao. Mwah.